Hello, Legionnaires, and happy holidays. This is Jim and Jay from Long Live the Legion coming at you with a special episode for the holiday season.
Yes, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, or Happy Fireworks Tree Display on Snarl, if that's how you're spending December 25th. Yes, I had to make a reference to the Legion's 1979 Christmas issue. We wanted to give you guys a little bit of a gift in case you're sitting at home on Christmas Day. And if you're like me, you've eaten too much food and you want to do nothing more than just lie there and veg out, this is the perfect thing to listen to. So we just wanted to have a little bit of fun, talk a little bit of Legion. We don't have one particular topic. We instead we're going to do some questions. So what we did to start off this is we said, come up with 5 questions we wanted to ask the other person. It's kind of like, I guess, the Colbert questionnaire, but the Legion questionnaire. And we're just going to have a little chat about this. And what we would love is on, Blue Sky or Reddit or wherever, send in your answers if you've got them. Like as you're listening to this, think about what you would say. So, Jim, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? What would you like?
You're going first on this one, my friend.
Okay. All right. So here's my first question for you that I think is right in your wheelhouse. Have a little bit of fun with this. So, pretend it is 1999. DC is just about to wrap up the Pyre, Macross, Stern Legion. They are going to relaunch it. They're going to do a 12-issue maxi series, just like Legion Lost. They say to you, you have an unlimited budget. You can hire whoever you want to relaunch the post-Zero Hour Legion. I'm not going to worry too much about if it's realistic. So you can pick whoever you want that you think is the perfect group to send the Legion into the 2000s. Who do you hire?
Wow, that's a really, really hard question. Well, I think honestly, and just because I really like the team and I really like the art from this era, right? I'd keep Jeff Moy on because one of the things that we did notice was that his art was getting very, very good as he came along and matured as an artist. So I would definitely keep Jeff on as the penciler, and then keep Corey Carani as the inker. Who would write it? That's, I think, the interesting question. I don't know. I mean, I think I'm going to say, and I've made allusions to this before in the past, I've always wanted to see a Hickman Legion. So I think I would say Jonathan Hickman.
All right. I like that. It's a very nice Christmassy answer. So, which is very good. I was thinking, I have answers for all of the questions that I've come up with so we could actually have a conversation about this. I went really crazy overboard because I was sitting there thinking, who can I hire that's going to bring people in and is going to relaunch the book and kind of get us going? So my art choice is Alan Davis. He had already been drawing the covers for a while.
Well, I mean, he did all the covers for the Legion title during that whole time period. So he's familiar with the characters.
Yeah. And Superboy's Legion, he was brilliant on. We'd be pulling him off X-Men titles, I think, to get us. So we'd have to pay him a lot of money. But I think it would be a great choice to kind of bring that. And I mean, in a dream scenario where I don't care about reality, I'm walking up to Alan Moore and I'm basically saying, okay, give me a number and you only need to do 12 issues. Just send it off. Kind of like what you did with Supreme, kind of like what you've done with other books, and bring it to the next level. If not him, if I wanted to go a little bit more, somebody that I would have loved to have seen on the Legion, especially that time, I'd go Peter David.
That is a very intriguing answer. I would really be interested in that too, because he definitely has chops as an author, but also as a comics writer very specifically. So I think that would be another fantastic choice.
Yeah, I was just thinking, who can write teenagers? Who can draw teenagers, right? Like the one thing you mentioned, Jeff Moy, like we've said this before, one of the best things that Moy brought to the book was they actually looked their age. And I think Davis does the same thing. And I think David can write teenagers. He did it on Young Justice. I think it would be a great choice. I mean, you could go crazy and just say, I want Grant Morrison and Jim Lee, but then the book's going to take 3 years to come out. It's probably, but it would get the fans. I wanted to go with something a little bit different. Anyways, your turn. Your first question.
All right. So this might be, hopefully this isn't too deep, but just want to kind of get a read from this question here. How did the Legion's futuristic setting allow writers to explore contemporary social issues in ways that mainstream superheroes did not or could not?
Ooh, we're going with deep questions on a Christmas day.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it's very much the Star Trek thing of it, where like you can talk about something that's happening in modern day and do it in a way where it's not obvious who you're criticizing or obvious who you're talking about, and you can sort of show you can show different takes on it. And I think that's one thing that, I mean, to be honest, I don't think the Legion really went in this direction a lot. Like there's only a few stories that I can think of where they really kind of played with it. But I think that's the big advantage of going 1,000 years in the future. Like, I mean, it is frightening looking back at how accurate those white triangle stories were compared to what's happening today.
Yeah.
Right. Like it is scary how they can do that. Or I think in terms of Triad's origin, right? Like when they're talking about because she was different from everybody else and all those things. And you could tell that they were making, well, maybe I'm reading into it, but I got the sense they were writing about things that they were seeing in modern events.
Yeah.
And they could play around with it, make a comment on it, and either criticize or compliment something. And in this case, I think it's criticize, of course. But yeah, I think that's, what do you think? What would you say would be the good example or something that you think the Legion really captured?
No, I think that's really that's good. I think they've tried to do it in several other ways too. There's a few direct commentary stories on same-sex relationships and things like that. I guess where I kind of sit is that I feel that they've not gone far enough in a lot of these cases. Whereas, like we talk a lot about the X-Men, right, on this show as a kind of a Marvel parallel to the Legion, and I really feel like that they do a much better job of being able to thread in a little bit of a morality tout into the story versus the Legion, which it's all fine, right? It's in some points people don't want to be preached at when they read their comics, and that's fine too. But it's always nice to have that extra little bonus part of the story.
I agree. And great thing that you bring up with the same-sex relationships. I hadn't even thought of that when I was thinking in terms of this, because I mean, it is fascinating to think that when 5 years later came out and you actually had like a transgender character and some, like you had all of these characters who were there, and it was never treated as weird or different or strange. It was just, here's the reality of what's going on. And realistically, the only place you were seeing that in comics at that time would have been Vertigo and like indie stuff. Like Marvel and DC weren't touching any of that.
For sure.
But I agree with you. Like, I think DC Comics for a lot of cases has always been one step forward, two steps back. Like, so they'll take the risk, but then they start going, oh, I don't know, like it might get a little, we might get some blowback, or we might get some criticism of it.
Certainly on the mainstream characters. It's however long it's been since 5 years later, and we've still never seen Violet and Ayla do anything other than hold hands. They were tiptoeing in the reboot around Lyle being gay. And even elsewhere in the DC universe, you don't have the main stars of the books. Generally speaking, there are exceptions nowadays that are homosexual or non-binary, right, or anything like that. It's like Fire and Ice, for example. For some reason, DC is very reluctant to even do anything but hint that they might be lesbians, right? It's a very strange situation with how DC handles anything other than normal quote unquote relationships that are mainstream.
Yeah, but I mean, I will defend DC and say, but I mean, could you not say that about most media, especially?
Oh, sure.
Right. And especially American driven media, like when you're dealing with that kind of audience. I mean, I also go back to, like, we talked about this episodes ago when we talked about when we were talking to Paul Kaminsky, and I was saying, like, I wish they put the letters pages in the reprints, because that's one of the most interesting things to read when you're reading these back issues. And in a lot of cases, like when they do anything with LGBTQ plus characters, or the letters they get are just shocking. Like you're just like, oh my God, I can't believe somebody wrote that. So it's a really tough thing. I think I would hope moving forward, the Legion would push boundaries a little bit, have a little bit of fun. Because right now you could essentially say, like, well, we have an asexual couple in Wildfire and Dawnstar. My brain's not working today. Yep. Right? Like, you could have so much fun with this stuff. I've joked about this before. If you make Projectra Jackie the Snake again and have her actually connect with Karate Kid again, you'd piss off a bunch of people, but it would be a very fascinating story to tell.
Yeah.
And you can just say, it's like, they're kind of destined to be together throughout all of these different universes. It's just that we're now in this, alternate sort of place. So I mean, it could be a lot of fun with that. And I think there's a lot of ways that they can do it. It's always that there's always a part of the fan base that is going to just pushback. And I always hope with the Legion, I get the sense from most of the Legion fans I've talked to, they're far more open to this stuff. It just seems, I think the Legion attracts a little bit more diverse and open-minded group of fans. I mean, that could just be me wishing that was the case, but I think it's true.
Yeah, I think I have the same view on that. Okay, so time for your next question, Jim.
Yeah, second question. Of all the Legionnaires, which Legionnaire do you think has been the most disrespected by the writers, either for their personality or their power usage or whatever? The one that got pushed furthest down, who you think should have gotten more respect?
This will be a quick answer for me because I think it's Kinetics in the reboot, just because they obviously had a certain thing in mind for her, then changed her around. Then at some point after Casey Carlson left as editor, they couldn't figure out what to do with her, and then it was just a bit of a shuffleboard game until Jeff Johns ended up killing her off in Legion of Three Worlds. But as we have seen, she has popped up a few times since then, so that's always a good thing. But yeah, I mean, I really think it was her, just because it was a scenario that, for God knows why, they just couldn't figure out how to use her. So instead of just having her in the background and not using her at all, they just did bad things to her.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good call. I mean, her personality change and then making her an SP and then her death, which was just weird, but especially when she was calling out for Leviathan and you were like, what? Like, it's
which Leviathan are we talking about here?
Yeah, so yeah, that's a good one. I ended up landing on, I thought Colossal Boy has kind of gotten the most from anybody who isn't Paul Levitz. It just seemed like nobody wanted anything. I mean, they've killed him twice. They've killed him multiple times. He always ends up, I think 5 years later made him look horrible. Sunboy's close to this one as well, but like, it just seems like if you need a dead skeleton of a Legionnaire, you just do a giant one, and that's Colossal Boy, and you're like, really? Like, he can't survive something? So, although
I thought in the Retroboot era, and I don't know if you've gotten to this point in your reread yet, but there's an interesting thing where he basically joins up the I was going to say the Imperial Navy, the UP Navy, because his father is an admiral. Yeah. I thought that was kind of a nice little touch to his character, but I guess we'll get into that when we talk about it more specifically later on.
Exactly. Okay, I'm picking the easy question, so let's see if you've got another hard one for us.
Okay.
Question number 2.
No, maybe I put too much thought into this. I think I have a couple silly ones here too. Okay, so in what ways did the Legion's rotating membership and massive roster reflect changing ideas about inclusivity and representation across different decades of comics?
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, we've already talked about the LGBTQ stories. So like the fact that, like when Siobhan Aaron became Sean, when, they hinted as close as they could to some same-sex relationships without actually getting there, but at least it was in the ballpark. I mean, the fact that, you can say like, when did the rumors start in like Legion Outpost stories that Element Lad is gay? I mean, does that go back to the 70s?
I don't know. I assume it does.
Yeah,
that's a good question. I was thinking about that earlier because I was poking around on the Major Spoilers Discord about, because they're in the middle of doing 5 years later right now. And so a lot of the discussion is around what's the blend of fanfic versus not fanfic in that particular era. And, it's interesting. That itself is an interesting question, I think. But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's and the thing that I really love about that idea is that, and I could be reading into this, like my own personal feelings on this, but I didn't get the sense that anybody was like, Element Lad is gay and that is bad in the 1970s.
No, exactly. It wasn't a bad thing. It was just
okay. And when you think like in the 1970s, watch televisions and movies, I mean, gay was presented in such a horrific manner in so many different cases. The fact that you had a fan base that were like, yeah, this guy's gay and it's cool and we're good with that and let's just keep it going, I think that's a great thing. Now we're going to talk about Tyrock for a bit. So here's the thing. For the fact that it completely failed and it just didn't work and they didn't know what to do, I will give them a small amount of credit for at least trying, like at least saying like, hey, we realize that there's a hole here. I mean, like they couldn't have mishandled this. They could have done it worse. Wasn't there the one comic where it was a white racist turned into a black superhero and DC was like, this is a good idea. So it wasn't that bad. But
ouch.
Yeah, it was in the ballpark, but at least, it was one of the first, or DC comics. And considering at the time it was in the top 5 sales wise for DC. So it's reaching a ton of people, and they were at least trying to do it. They turned Karate Kid. They finally drew him as an Asian character in the 70s, which again, you can argue about how well it was, how well it looked to basically just draw Bruce Lee, especially when the character is supposed to be Japanese. But again, it's the 70s, and they're making choices. They're making bad choices from a 2025 perspective, but from a 1975 perspective, it's not horrible, but it's not as horrible. And then I always wonder, and I say this as a straight white guy who has never had a moment where I've read comics and gone, gee, wouldn't it be nice if somebody looked like me or acted like me in a comic book? And I sometimes wonder, even for all the failings, I would think if I was a black kid in 1976 and Tyrock shows up and I'm like, hey, this guy looks like me, even if it's badly handled, do I still go, I'm seeing myself on the page? And I don't know the answer. I've never been in this situation. I just know, I think of what Black Panther, the movie, meant, or I think of what Shang-Chi, the movie, meant to kids who were like, hey, this is a superhero movie, and I normally never see people who look like me. And this is the last decade. So I'm assuming in the 70s, it was an even bigger. 1975, it's what? The Bartender on Love Boat. And for shows that are aimed at white people, there's not a lot else.
There really isn't. I think, I'm just trying to think back where, you had scenarios even into the 80s, right? You had characters where the black eye was basically just a sidekick in a lot of cases, right? Yeah. And thankfully this started evolving, but I'm thinking in Spencer for Hire, you had Hawk, who was played by the awesome Avery Brooks, who then obviously went on to do great things in Star Trek, but he actually did end up getting his own series, where he was the lead for a bit. So it was just handled very awkwardly, I guess, definitely by today's standards, probably not by then, but no. When I was thinking about this question, I was thinking about how DC, as a very conservative company as far as how they made their publishing choices anyway, had a scenario where the growth of the Legion and the diversity of the Legion really reflected very specifically the way things were handled at the time. So you get into the 60s where you have Jim Shooter introducing Shadowlass and Pharaoh Lad. Pharaoh Lad famously was supposed to have been African American, and then we all know the history about that. And then he ended up getting killed. And then Shadowlass also could have been African American or dark skinned versus blue skinned. Yeah. And have gone from there. And then they're behind the 8 ball when they get to the 70s and introduce Tyrock in this horrible fashion. I guess the good thing to talk about, right, is the fact that the Legion has always been positive from a gender inclusion perspective, right, from what we've talked about in the past with the female leadership and whatnot. Yeah.
And the other one I was going to say that I don't think gets enough credit because it wasn't I don't want to say it wasn't a big enough story, but I don't think it gets enough credit. I'm going to go back to a Colossal Boy reference. The Colossal Boy marriage to Yera, the fact that you have a character marrying an obviously alien woman, and they're not hiding that she's alien. They are leaning into the fact that she does not look, and again, there's a couple of really rough issues to read, when they go for dinner with. So here's the thing: when we talk about Colossal Boy, I always say Jim, or I say Gim, and so it's going to take me a long time to say Jim, even though. God. Yeah, no, I know. I'm look. It's not a podcast if I don't mispronounce something, so we're just going to go with. Because in my brain as a kid, it was always Gim. Anyway, so Jim brings Yera home for dinner, and it's really bad to read now. It's just.
I think I might have a GIF of that scene on my computer. Yeah. I'm going to go get myself a gin and tonic. Okay. Anyway. Or gin and tonic, I guess is what I'm supposed to say. Anyway.
That's what it's supposed to be. Anyways, I was a kid, and just be happy I'm not pronouncing Kund the way I hear it in my head.
Yeah, so that could be problematic very quickly.
Let's just go with that. Again, I've just accepted it's if something's going to get mispronounced, it's going to be done by me. So, so there's that, right? There's those little things as well, and I think they have pushed the envelope in a lot of different ways, which I think is good. But again, as I said earlier, it's always the one step forward, 2 steps back, or we're going to do it, but we're going to do it in such a bad way. Every time I think about that horrible speech Superboy gives Tyrock of like, we don't see color. Like, look, we have a green skinned and an orange skinned. And like reading it now in 2025, you're just like Superboy, you are not the person who should be giving this speech.
Yeah,
like,
stop talking, Superboy.
Yeah, like you come from the whitest of white towns, and just stop.
Clark,
like if it had been
rule number 1, Clark, when you're in a hole, stop digging.
Yeah, so he never figured that one out. He just keeps digging and digging and digging. Yeah.
All right, your turn.
Okay, my turn. Okay, perfect. Here's a tough one. Which Legionnaire would you remove from Legion membership? Ooh, if you just say like, I don't want to see this character in the lineup anymore. I think it's time for it would be better if they left.
Okay. Well, the easy answer is Earthman. Just because he's horrible. But I'm assuming you're meaning of the more of the mainstream lineups.
Not the villains. Yes.
Honestly, this is kind of tough to say just because of her pedigree and kind of what she represents. But I kind of see where they got rid of where in the reboot they didn't use Andromeda a lot and kind of wrote her off to the side of the stage. I can see her not coming back just because at that point you have essentially 2 Kryptonians and a microphone. No, I'm just kidding. 2.5 Kryptonians at that point, right? Just so the team is really powerful when you have all of that, almost overpowered. So that I could definitely see that.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, I think it, and I agree with you. Like, it's a tough call, especially because of the pedigree and especially because of the Supergirl. I honestly don't think we're ever going to see Andromeda again because they have Supergirl again. Yeah. So they don't need that analog, right? So she's just going to disappear. And yeah, Earthman's an obvious choice, and we just like the less said about him, the better. I went with more like, how many people can I irritate with this? So the first one is, if I never see Quizlet again, I don't think I'm going to be too sad, even though it was an interesting concept. It just, I always feel weird calling Quizlet he, but that's how they referred to him. It was always that like, I'm just here to have fun and I'm just here to cause problems. And you're just like, yeah, okay, I don't need this on the team. I think if Magnetic Kid never comes back, I'm not sad just because we don't need him. Because we have Cosmic Boy, and then he doesn't die, which is another one. And the other one, if I really want to piss off a bunch of people, I don't need Matter Eater Lad. I'm sorry.
I mean, I can't deny that he was not on the list in my head that I was thinking of.
So, I get why people love him, and I get why he's a key. And I think, but at the end of the day, I have so many Matter Eater Lad questions that we're going to save for his episode. And I think it's one I've been trying to figure out the best way to explain this for people who loved him during 5 years later. And I hated him during 5 years later. And I'm like, and I think that's where it comes from. And my justification for this is I didn't read it in the trades. So I was waiting every month to get these stories. So you're in the middle of this incredibly serious, like, is Chameleon Boy dead? He just got shot in the head by, and then the next issue is, hey, we're going to do a joke episode with Matter Eater Lad, where he's a lawyer and he's trying, and he's ripping apart Polar Boy. And I'm like, I don't need to read any of this. And this is just slowing me down. So again, we'll talk about that more. Please, Matter Eater Lad fans, come in and flame me for this one. I get why you love them. I definitely respect him way more now than I did 5 years ago. So I don't need a superhero whose literal power is to jump and chew on something.
Yeah. No, I get it. I mean, I was also thinking like, I didn't really put into consideration because I always think of Cosmic Boy being there. I never really thought of his brother being as kind of included in that list, or even the reboot version, which is Magno. I just never really considered them as even being somebody that could be on the list. But everybody else, I kind of, even Polar Boy, I kind of like having somebody with Polar Boy's skill set on the team. It kind of makes sense.
Oh, I have argued for years Polar Boy should have never been a sub.
Yeah.
Like if Sunboy makes the team, and in the original Silver Age, Sunboy literally just makes light. Like, he's got no heat powers. And you can't argue that half of those guys didn't have zero control over their powers or anything any better than Polar Boy did. Yeah, I think he should have been a Legionnaire right from the start. So that's my rant. Now, there'll be more letters that'll be like, no, Polar Boy sucks. What's wrong with you? All right, your turn. Next question.
Okay. All right. So which is an interesting question. I kind of thought about this, and I'm very curious as to your take. Which is more problematic from a comic book or from a story perspective? A writer who loves a character too much, or one who hates a character too much?
Well, that's a good one. You're firing on all cylinders.
You know what?
I'm now feeling bad about my questions.
My last two are going to be silly, so that's fine.
Okay. I actually think a writer who hates a character too much is worse than a writer who loves a character, because at the end of the day, if you're working in comics, it's because you love comics and you love the medium. I would rather, for all the things that I say where I rip apart, like, and let's use 5 Years Later as a really good example. Like, okay, they love Matter Eater Lad, so they shove him to the forefront, and it's irritating. And I don't think they're good stories, but I'd rather read that than read what they did to Sunboy and and all the characters that they hated.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's my litmus test. Like, and I'll say this. Okay, Keith Giffen hated Karate Kid and has killed him multiple times now. But you can't argue that Karate Kid didn't get an incredibly impactful death.
Oh, for sure.
Right. And so I think it's like, maybe I'm arguing both sides, but I just think if you hate that character, it's going to be I think you're just going to end up with worse stories than if you love the character too much and kind of go the wrong way the other side.
I mean, yeah, I'm a little bit of two minds of this as well, because, and I think we've skirted around some of these characters before in various incarnations, but yeah, we've seen runs where the writers really love a particular character a lot, and they're always, in almost every scene, and you're like, okay, we get the fact that you love this particular character, and then that takes away oxygen from other characters to be portrayed. But yeah, I think the situation where somebody hates a character too much, and to use the Giffen example with Karate Kid, I think is obviously that's probably the perfect example. And I think it would have been fine if Giffen went and said, okay, we're going to kill him. And this is, I guess, with Levitz, right? When they had the battle with Nemesis Kid on Orlando, it was a very impactful death, like you said. Leave it at that. If you as a writer have killed a character, you are never allowed to touch them again, right? Because at that point, if you keep on doing it, it's out of spite. Yeah. And this is why I think earlier when we had the discussion, when we had the mention about kinetics, it felt like everything that was being done after once they turned her into that, and the anomaly mute, and then, turned her into a cop, and then turned her into whatever the hell it turned into. It just felt like they were doing all that stuff out of spite, even when they kill her off and they say, I just killed Lame Lass, is what Superboy Prime said. It's like, come on, all right, are you guys putting your own feelings into this? This is kind of stupid. And so yeah, I think I tend to agree with you, because even if you're over precious with a particular character, you're tending not to destroy other characters in the wake of it.
Yeah. And the other thing I was thinking, and I wanted to say this so we don't miss it, when Karate Kid was killed, Levitz was the one who decided that. And I've always read Levitz loved Karate Kid. Like, he worked on the original series. Mm-hmm. He was a fan of the characters. So I think maybe that's why he got such a good send-off. And maybe we give that death more of a credit to Levitz loving the character and wanting to do something with it. But yeah, I just think I would rather read books by people who love the characters, even if they go like, and I'll give the Kid Quantum, right? Like when Abnett and Lanning take over, like, it's obvious they love her. They want to use her. And so then my complaints are not how they handled her. My complaints are what you just said. Like, okay, so why don't we see Shrinking Violet anymore? Or why don't we see like all these other characters that don't work? And then I think like, well, then that's the editor's job to sit there and say, hey guys, like, there's 22 members. You're only focusing on 6. Let's start using some other characters.
You're 100% right. And, this is when I think I was looking back at this last year, right? I think having Paul Kaminski on was fantastic, just because I was able to get so much better of an idea of what the job entails. And he said he makes sure that he's the consistent voice of the characters across the titles and across the stories and all that kind of stuff. So that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you're right. It's when you have a strong editor at the wheel that can make sure that people stay in the lane, and they have to give them latitude to be able to be creative, but not to be way outside the bounds in both of these ways that we're talking about here, either being overly precious or overly destructive. It's like at the end of the Retro Boot when we have Sunboy is another character I think that gets overly hated on in a lot of ways.
Yep, exactly. I sometimes think a writer who loves a character has to be like a parent who coaches their kid's little league team or whatever.
That's a great analogy.
Right? Because like, if you show so much favoritism to your kid, you've lost every bit of respect, and all the other kids know it, right?
Right.
And I remember I used to coach my kid, and I would say to him, like, just so you know, I'm going to be harder on you than anybody else because like, and I'm sorry, but this is kind of how it works because I want all these kids to know they're being treated equally. And he was like, well, that sucks. And I'm like, but on the plus side, hopefully I'm a good coach.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. Good.
Exactly.
All right. My next question is, which supporting character do you want to see more of, or do you want to see made a Legionnaire? So like if they're a superhero that you want to see elevated, or if it's just somebody in the background that you want to see more stories with.
I'm not going to lie. My knee-jerk reaction was Siobhan Aaron, because we haven't really seen a lot of her lately. We got introduced to her obviously during the Levitz era, and 5 years later, obviously with the whole Siobhan storyline. And then we got her again in the reboot. And then after that, we didn't really get her again until we got Levitz back again for his last run. And ever since, around that, we don't really get her. And I think she's kind of to me, she's almost an adjunct member of the team as far as I'm concerned. And I'd love to see more of her.
Yep. Yeah, that is definitely the knee-jerk response. I'm actually going to go I'm going to stay with the Science Police because I think I like the Legion more when the Science Police is with the Legion rather than against the Legion, and when they're actually competent. And I'm like, I really hate when the SPs end up like just looking like idiots and bumblers. Yeah. I will mispronounce this character's name. I would like to see Gigi Cusimano as the chief, like have her elevated in that position. So she's the one still with the background of, having been with Colossal Boy and kind of dating Sun Boy. Like you have all that stuff that you can play with, and then, but put her in a position of authority where she's like, and I think that would be a lot of fun for the characters to do. I mean, obviously we're talking about a Legion that's in their 20s, right?
Yeah, totally. No, I think that's a fantastic idea. I love me some Gigi. I think, she's a great little character to have on there. And I was really disappointed. I'll tell you what, I was super disappointed in the reboot after we have the Emerald Violet storyline and they kill Leviathan, and you see her at the funeral and you never see her again. I was really disappointed in that because we still got plenty of Siobhan Aaron after that, but I thought that Gigi was kind of too cool of a character to just kind of throw away and toss.
That is one of those things that I find really funny about the reboot era, in that they had 2 books and they were juggling all of these characters and they still seem to fail sometimes. Like it was just like, whereas Levitz had his 1 book and he was just able, and I hate to keep heaping praise on this guy, but and that's a perfect example. Now, the other one, of course, is Comic Queen has to be a Legionnaire, and we have to have her back.
I'm out.
I couldn't even finish that sentence without laughing. Yeah, she can. There you go. That's my Christmas joke. So for those of you, since this isn't video, Jim literally got up and left as soon as I said that. So, and the bottle of scotch has come out. I am obviously joking. So it is there you go. Perfect.
You're not joking.
No, I'm not joking. I'm joking about Comic Queen being a character.
Yes.
As I was thinking about this question, because we're focused on Science Police, like I always think of is there a hero that I would, because I think they did, Reboot did a great job with the Heroes of Lalor and, no, sorry, not the Heroes of Lalor. Yeah, the Heroes of Lalor, and then with all the people from Xanthu. I'm going to.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. That's what I was blanking on that myself. Yes.
Yeah. All of too many planets to remember. And I sometimes think when you're looking at these characters are what would have happened if, say, Evolvo had actually been a Legionnaire, or if, and he and Brainiac 5 are actually kind of at wit's ends, arguing over everything, or what would have happened if they had, I don't think we need Insect Queen to join, but it's an interesting thing. Or Spider Girl. I kind of really liked her when she was on the workforce. I thought it was a really interesting twist that they did. And then when they just turned her villain again, it just seemed like a big waste of a character. And again, a reformed villain isn't a bad idea for the Legion, to have somebody, again, as much as I hated, and I hated is not a strong enough word for how much I hated the whole Coons joining the Legion and the 5 years later thing. I actually think they could have had a blast if it was done well with hey, here's Fleeterweb. He's now a member of the Legion. You have no choice. It would have been very much like a war fun Star Trek.
Exactly. I was thinking exactly the same thing.
Right?
Absolutely.
And it could have been so much fun to do if it had been done well, right? I think it just would have been a great thing they could have played with, where you have those characters who are just they did it a little bit with Gates of I don't really want to be here, but to actually have somebody who's I hate all of you, and I can't believe that I'm it would have been fun storytelling. Like, anyways, your question.
Oh, okay, my turn. So here's okay. I'm going to do a silly one. I've had three kinds of serious questions here. Now I'm going to do something a little bit silly. Since we've talked about Sunboy a bunch, I'm going to throw this one out here. Does Sunboy ever get banned from tanning salons because he keeps on breaking the bulbs in the tanning salon?
Why would he break the bulbs?
Because he's just too damn bright.
See, I would think, does Shadowlass get banned from tanning salons because she sucks all the light away?
That's probably the better question. I think that's probably the better question.
Nobody gets. I think Sunboy gets banned from a lot of places. I don't know if it's tanning salons, but
that's what I was hoping to get to.
Yeah, I am fairly certain there's I probably shouldn't tell this story because it's going to annoy some people. When I was living in Korea, there was a bunch of signs at like bars and restaurants where it was like, no, pick your group, right? I'm sure these signs are all gone. I think Korea is a lot more open-minded than it was when I was there. And I think that would be, his picture would be like on the front door, like Dirk Morgna is not allowed in this place. We are not allowing this guy. It's like, no, but he's a Legionnaire. Yeah. Who else would get banned? He would be the big one.
He'd probably be the top of the list for sure.
Yeah. Okay. My last question is, what is your holy grail of comics? Like, what is the one comic that if you open up the package Christmas morning, it would be like, this is what I've always wanted to have?
I don't think it's a comic book issue itself. I have a few, my holy grail, personal holy grail, is to have a page from Jeff Moy Legionnaires that has at least Shrinking Violet on it, or both her and Kinetics on the same page. I have one with Kinetics, a couple, I guess, last year, 94. In 2024, I got some pages from Jeff at Baltimore Comic Con, and I got one of them, I think, from either Legionnaires 49 or 50. And so that's pretty cool. But I haven't been able to find one that has Vi on there. That's every time I see it pop up, it usually pops up in the middle of the night. So by the time I wake up and I get on my news feed, whatever's on there has already been purchased. It's already gone and not able to be accessed anymore. So that, I think, is my holy grail.
Nice. Yeah, it's. I think I'm same with you. It would be a piece of artwork. Like there's some covers and some art that I'd love to have. Like I'd love to have an original Dave McKeon or Bill Sienkiewicz. My comic book holy grail, just because it's become really expensive and I can't justify it. The very first appearance of Shang-Chi, which is like Marvel special edition. I think it's 15, and it's now like way too expensive for me to justify buying it, especially knowing that it's not a great comic. It's just more to have that final issue that I want. But yeah, there's a ton of stuff. Like, I mean, I would love to have, I'm sure you've done the same thing. Like you go on eBay or some of this comic art pages and you're like, I could have, like this Paul Galassi cover from 1978. And you're like, this would be beautiful. And then you go, I don't have $10,000.
Yeah, exactly. And it's bad enough, these ones that are just from a comic that only niche people really like. I mean, so okay, here's one. I have a couple of them here. I got Legionnaires 50. This is actually, I think, the final page of Legionnaires 50. Here, you can't see it from my over here. Not like we're recording this on video. So I got Legionnaires 50 right here. So you have lots of characters. Yep. And then you got 48. This is page 10 from 48. Nice. So you got a nice Kinetics drawing on the bottom corner there. Then I have... What's this? This is Legionnaires 38, where the Brawlian and the representative from Saturn, who are in a same-sex relationship, are kind of together at bedside here, where the Legionnaires are helping them out. And then I have this is kind of a cool one. I have Legionnaires 21, which is the Planet Hell.
Right.
And it has like a cool like special effects for the Stargate or whatever it was. It's kind of this overlay on top, so it's pretty slick.
Yeah. So for any new
I just
comics,
want something like that, but something that has Shrinking Violet on it.
That makes sense. That's good. Can you even buy original comic art from like modern comics, or is it just all digital? Like, do people actually?
Oh, that's a good question. No, I still think they have to go through most of the same process. But it's a good question. We need to ask somebody next time we get an artist on.
Yeah, because it's because I think the ones that I've seen, I don't think have any of the lettering on them because that's all done digitally now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's so funny getting this stuff. Like for me, I've got a Mike Zeck page from an old master of Kung Fu. I've got a couple of Tim Truman pages from a Jonah Hex. And I'm like, it's just like, these are just cool to have. Like, and you realize like, it's a literal one of a kind. Like this, you kind of hold that and I'm like, I am the only person who owns this thing. And it's quite funny to just see, like to see with the like the blue lines and the little notes on the side and like, it's just kind of get a little bit more behind the scenes, but
exactly. I mean, on these pages, like in some cases you can see where they might have updated a little bit in a word balloon or something like that. Cause you can see where they taped over, then relettered or whatever. So it's very interesting stuff. Kind of cool to see it. So I recommend
it's always fun. Yeah. And then the stamps on the background, if you have the old ones where it actually says, like, I think the Master of Ku, it's like Marvel Comics, this is work for hire. You do not own these pages. Like it's very clear what the kind of what the artist is agreeing to. And it's rough when you know the history of it. So, okay. So for anybody listening, if you have a page of Jeff Moy artwork that has Shrinking Violet on it, please let us know. So it's all good. Okay. All right. Your last question.
Last question. Okay. Here's going to be another fun one that I can, if I can find where I wrote this down. Oh yeah, I know. Okay. So this is about Chameleon Boy or Chameleon. So how much money do you think he was able to get as a side hustle impersonating other Legionnaires when they had to go on monitor duty?
I was thinking a completely different side hustle, but okay. Well, here's the thing. Would he need a credit? He's Dad's RJ Brand. Like, why would he wouldn't take any of the money. He'd be like,
depends which version we're talking about. Right. Could be,
okay. Well,
could be 3-boot, could be reboot.
I think the better one might be depending on the reboot. How much money did he make from blackmailing his teammates saying, I'm going to go pretend to be, because wasn't he doing that in 3-boot? Like he'd show up and he'd just pretend to be one of them.
That's
and piss all of them off. Right?
That's right. Exactly.
So I think here's the bigger question. When news sources found out that he was engaged in sexual relations with a bird, how much did he have to pay to keep that quiet? There's your Christmas image as you're eating turkey.
Yeah, I know. No kidding. I mean, I think probably another interesting question along the same vein would have been, well, how much did Vi blackmail her teammates just shrinking down and recording people and being a general snoop?
Or Invisible Kid, like just all that.
Kid,
like,
absolutely.
Yeah, like, I mean, it is one of those when you start thinking, it's kind of the same like when you read or watch the Harry Potter stories and then the Legion, you think it's a bunch of teenagers who are going through puberty and they have these powers that allow them to do things that would be questionable at best. And then you say like, yeah, so what would have happened if, like Superboy is using his X-ray vision wandering around or Saturn Girl can read everybody's minds. And it's like, yeah, so Ultra Boy, just so you know, Phantom Girl's got a crush on Superboy. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Like thoughts, like just stuff like that. You could just, I think in the case, wasn't it in Reboot, like Violet liked being on monitor duty, so she'd just take over everybody's.
Well, she was doing it just because she was trying to track down Kinetics at the time.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So it's, I mean, with Chameleon Boy, it's or again, like he's the guy who dated a princess and was a diplomat or like, in the OG version.
Right. Yeah.
What kind of boyfriend is Chameleon Boy? Like they kind of hint at it with Yera at a certain point when, it got creepy and weird, but now we're getting into Mallrats territory.
Exactly.
Stuff. It's just like weird and weird, but it's the same with a lot of those. Like what would this character have done? I always think I'm going to clean up the conversation a little bit.
Why bother?
Exactly. We're sinking into the mire, and we're a few scotches in. I was thinking a lot I was thinking about questions and thinking about like if you actually had a writer who wrote the Legionnaires showing their powers at full strength. Like you basically took these characters as like, okay, they have been doing this for say 6-7 years. They are in full control. Let's say they're all in their 20s. So we're talking like, Volume 3, 5 years later, whatever. Like, is there a super team you can think of that could beat the Legion ever? Like, I mean, I know it's a question. I know we're into question 6 now on my list, but this was one where I was thinking about this, and I don't even know why my brain got there. But I was thinking, like, let's just take Shadowlass by herself. She is sucking every bit of light out of a room, right?
Mm-hmm.
Who's beating her? Batman's useless at this. Like, just pick your super team, right? Like she's defeating anybody who isn't superpowered just by herself. And then you take the rest of the team, and And I'm kind of thinking like maybe that's why all the writers depower the Legion, because if you actually wrote them to the way they are with 22 of them.
Well, I think it's just a matter of being creative with limitations, right? Because I think in that particular case, when you said that, I was like, okay, well, Batman could, since it's just light, Batman would switch over to some kind of sonic technology to be able to move around, so it's just how do you get creative with it? I think so. I think it's the more interesting way of approaching it is how can you resolve that challenge without getting tropey about it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? By saying, well, let's take out Superboy by all of a sudden unveiling some green kryptonite out of nowhere, right? Something stupid like that, or
you mean the Silver Age?
Yeah, or something pulled them to the other side of the galaxy. You can't get here in time.
Yeah.
Something weird like that. If it's something more creative, then that's that makes it an interesting story potentially. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's just one of those. I think it's funny when you start thinking about these characters and you start thinking about how they can be used. And I'm kind of hoping when they wrap up this whole Darkseid's Legion story, they actually get to kind of let loose.
Yeah, like
actually show like this is how dangerous these characters are.
I mean, can you imagine? And this is why I would love to see this, but Dan Mora, please, don't hurt yourself doing this. Seeing all of the JLU up against the Legion of Darkseid. I mean, that's a lot of characters right there. That would be crazy, but I think it would be kind of a fun little thing to do before this is all over and we get the new team.
Yeah, you're getting into George Perez territory with that kind of character indeed. Usage, and I think that's probably something that I wish we had seen in Legion of Three Worlds, like the Legion against the Legion of Supervillains, and actually show the big battle and show the because you've got 60 Legionnaires, and you've got like just go crazy with it. Anyways, that was our little rant to stop talking about perverted Legionnaires. Okay, anything else for this Christmas episode?
Oh no, I just as long as everybody has a happy and safe holiday as we get into our second year here, and just want to say thanks again for all of our listeners. We really appreciate it.
Yes, I am stunned that we're getting to the end of our first year. We wouldn't be here without all of you who are listening. So this is why we want to do something a little bit special that wouldn't normally be coming down the pipe. Not that us rambling about stuff for an hour is special, but it's
if you've been with us for this long, then
then you know what's going on. But anyways, this is a thank you to everybody out there. So I also wanted to say this as kind of a little bit of a behind the scenes. Second year is going to be better. We've got some stuff coming down the pipe. We've got some amazing guests lined up. We are really excited about what's going to happen. Stick with us. Second year is going to be even better than the first. So we are really looking forward to this. There's some great topics, and we're going to have hopefully some good arguments with some people. Maybe not arguments, discussions, but it's going to be, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. And you know what? And best of all, we're getting a new Legion book. So
yes.
And we have yet to understand how that's going to impact the schedule that we've already put down. So we'll have to see that. But you know what? And here's what I'm going to say to all of our listeners I'm going to say, if you have friends and you want to get them into this new Legion and have them buying it and get it successful, and your friends they're not as into the Legion, or they want to get under a better understanding of how the Legion is, what it is, who the people are, all that kind of stuff, point them our way. We'd love to have them listen to us, ask questions of us directly online. You know how to get to us. We're here to help the Legion community and all of the new Legion listeners that we get in this coming year, and we obviously hope that it's going to be a huge success.
Yeah, exactly. So on that note, if there are new fans or are fans that are coming back, how can they find you online? How can they connect with us, Jim?
Well, I have my Legion Reviews website at jimboslegion.blogspot.com, where I try to post new content on a regular basis. It used to be weekly, but it's really dropped off of that. But you can find me personally on Blue Sky at jimbofett.bsky.social. That's Jimbo Fett with 2 T's. On Reddit at jimbofett87. On Discord as Jimbo Fett on the Legion Fan Club Discord, as well as the Certain Point of View Discord. How about you?
A lot of the same stuff. So you can find my weekly reviews at jmlonglivethelegion.blogspot.com. And I think by the time this airs, I will be finally done with Last Stand of New Krypton, which I've been regretting for weeks that I decided to take this on. But hopefully it'll get to a nice conclusion. And please, if it hasn't, don't tell me. You can contact me on Blue Sky at jmckernan.bsky.social. You can find me on Discord and on Reddit under the name Drake Burrows. And I was going to say, like, if you are new to the Legion and you have questions, that Legion Discord group is a great place to go. It's far more active than it was when I first joined. We've got some great people on there who are constantly talking about the Legion, and they would be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. So hopefully this community is going to really come together, especially as the new series is coming. If you want to reach out to this podcast, our email address is longlivethelegion2025@gmail.com, or you can find us on Blue Sky, and it's at longlivethelegion.bsky.social.
That is correct. And you can post in response to any of our posts there. You can send us a direct message if you want to get in contact with us. That's where you can find us. You can also find us on any podcatcher worth its salt. And when you see us there, please give us a 5-star rating on your podcatcher of choice. Even better, give us 2 ratings. Give us as many 5-star ratings as you want, and we would love it.
Yeah. Same with on YouTube. You can find us on YouTube, subscribe, give us 5-star reviews. It really helps us out so that we start moving up the algorithms and people can find us. All right. On that, we're gonna close, or we're gonna shut down the little mission monitor board that we opened for Christmas Day. And we're just going to say, I hope you had a great holiday. I hope you had great time off. I hope you got to spend time with loved ones, whoever they are, whether it's friends, family, or both. And I hope you're looking forward to a great new year. I think 2026 is going to be awesome, especially for the Legion, which is something we're really looking forward to. So on that note, long live the Legion.
Long live the Legion, and Happy New Year.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
CPOV.
CertainPOV.com.